Do you ever wish someone would draw you a map and give you the directions to the career of your dreams? If so, consider this podcast your GPS to a career where you feel strong, fulfilled, and passionate about your work, day in and day out. On this show, I am sharing the tools to help you advocate for your strengths, discover your passions, and learn from folks who transformed their careers for the better. My name is Joyel Crawford, your fairy god mentor, and with my 18 years of experience in HR at a Fortune 50 company and 20 years of coaching and mentoring top leaders, I am thrilled to be your guide on this career journey. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to Career View Mirror. I am your host, Joyel Crawford, your fairy god mentor, and we are here to talk about Career View Mirror, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on real careers, real leadership journeys, and the decisions that shape them. Today's conversation is especially timely. Hiring has become faster, more automated, and let's be honest, more impersonal. So, careers are still built on that human connection. So, we want to talk about that human connection. I'm excited to welcome Ramon Santillan. He helps professionals stand out, communicate with confidence, and land roles without sounding like a resume on autopilot. Ramon, welcome to Career View Mirror.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here.
So let's start at the beginning. What experience or series of experiences inspired you to build your career around interviewing, persuasion, and helping people show up more powerfully in high stakes conversations?
For me, what really pushed me to start this business, and actually before I started this business, I was doing this for free. But I realized when I was in college that I'm an introvert, and I like to be at home reading my books, on the computer. But when it was time to go to an interview, I
Mhm.
prepared really well. Again, this is for my internship. This is the fall of 2001. So right after September 11, the economy was very slow. People were not hiring. People were losing jobs. Does that remind you of anything? Kind of like what we're happening right now, going
Mhm.
through right now. And I was looking for an internship. And in my school, University of Texas, the accounting program where I was in, if you didn't have an internship, you couldn't graduate. So I had to make sure I got an internship. So what
Mhm.
did I do? I prepared more than everyone else. I did research. Back then the internet was barely coming out, so most companies didn't have a website. So I did that. Went to the library. I got magazines and all that stuff. And I did research. And I said, be very competitive because I don't have the best grades. I don't have any connections. I'm a first generation college student, and I don't have any prior related work experience. I had jobs, but not in accounting. So I go to the interview, and it was one of these super days where they do, 300 candidates go interview that one day, and I was one of those candidates. Several things. Looking back, I see that back then I thought there were points against me. Now I
Mhm.
kind of realize there was more things that I have an advantage of. But this is 2001. University of Texas, still in Texas. Not a lot of Hispanic students were there. I
Mhm.
was one of the few. Definitely not a lot of Hispanic students in the accounting program. I was
Mm.
probably a handful. So you look into the in the hallway, people waiting to be interviewed, and it was a lot of white people, a lot of white
Mhm.
some females. Actually, not a lot of females either, but there were some white females, and then everyone's kind of like average height. I'm really tall. I'm 6'1". So you see like this, there's a white, big tall Mexican guy. White. Anyways, so I definitely stood out. But what really surprised me was at the end, I got an internship, and a lot of those people did not. So again, there was like 300 people applying, maybe 350, and I was one of maybe 20 people who got an offer.
Wow.
And I was like, well, wait, doesn't make any sense because I was very happy, obviously, but I was like, something doesn't match up. Like, I don't have any prior experience.
Mhm.
I don't have the highest grades. I definitely didn't have the highest grades. I didn't have any connections. So why did I get hired over people who had all those things?
Right.
And I realized it was not so much about the technical ability. Obviously, you need to know accounting, right? Like
Right.
any job, you need to know how to do the job somehow. But it was more about how you presented yourself. And here's the thing: most people say how you sell yourself, and I don't agree with that term because I'm
Yeah.
not. I don't
Why
need right. I'm a person. I'm not a brand. A lot of people say work on your brand. I'm not a brand. I'm not a thing. I'm a person. So
not?
what I work on is presenting myself. So I realized I did a lot better job presenting myself back then with that interview. And maybe it's because, again, I think I had those things against me. No prior work experience, related work experience, bad grades, all that stuff. So I was like, well, maybe I need to make sure I do that really well. Whereas
Mhm.
who had the high grades, the connections, all that stuff, they said, well, they're going to give me a job because I have the high grades, the connections,
Mhm.
and that wasn't the case. So, after that, my friends were asking, how did you get a job? How come you got a job and no one else got a job?
Right.
Um, and it was like, well, in my mind, it was like, well, persuasion. I persuaded them. And how did I do that? By presenting myself the right way. So, anyways, I did that for many, many years, a good 15, 20 years for free. I was just helping my friends, friends of friends, acquaintances. And at some point, a stranger called me. And I said, how did you get my name? She said, I need help with my resume. And I said, how did you get my name, my phone number? It was my
Mhm.
personal number. And she said, well, I was at a party and someone mentioned you. You remember who it was? No, I don't remember. It was just some guy that was there. So I called you and I started working. And then that's how my business started, actually. But
Wow.
it really is about how you present yourself, how you persuade people. And there's some things that you have to do that have nothing to do with technical ability.
Now, what like so much of your work today is about strategy versus mindset. How much is it about unlearning habits that no longer serve people in modern hiring systems? Like, how much of that unlearning do you have to do with your clients?
Yeah, a lot. A lot of my students, my clients, students in my program are college students. That's the
Mm,
majority of my clients. I do some executives, and
mhm,
those are. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. But most of my
mhm.
clients are students. Students in most colleges take an internship job search course, right?
Yep.
And they, obviously, career services they do their best. They don't have a lot of people, and they have 1,000 students or more, and it's maybe 5 or 10 people. So they try to do their best with what they can. So that's one thing. Second thing, they teach a process that works for maybe the high achievers or the high performers or the extroverts, right? And for better or worse, career services does not get judged on how many people get hired. They tell you what to do, and then you're off to the races. If you get a job, that's kind of on you.
Right.
Well, actually, if you get a job, it's like, oh, well, you're welcome because we helped you. If you don't get a job, it's like, well, try harder. And it's like, well, I already did what you told me. Like, so, so that's kind of what career services does. So a lot of times when students come to me, I have to teach them like, okay, the process they showed you maybe works for some people. My job's not to get everyone a job. My job's to help my client get a job. So
Mhm,
we focus like specifically on what their needs are. So a lot
mhm,
of things I have to unteach them is resume formats, for example. And we'll talk more about that later too. A
mhm,
lot of times they want to use a resume format because, again, in the class they're going to teach you one resume format because they only have
mhm.
time to teach one resume format. In my case, I teach people what resume works for you. I don't need it to be necessarily efficient. I need it to be effective.
Okay.
I need to get you a job. I don't need it to crank out 5 resumes in 10 minutes. That's not
Right.
the point. I need you to help you. What's the point of a resume? What's the point of applying for a job? It's
Mhm.
not like let me get as many applications in. Let me get as many interviews in. No, the goal of a job search is not to apply. It's not to connect with people. It's not even to interview. The goal of a job search is to get you a job. And we focus on the goal, not on the steps. So that's the main thing. If you have to say one thing you unteach people is that don't focus on the steps. Steps are made to be moved around. You can
Yes.
start at the beginning. No one's, I've told people before, and some people, again, this is an anomaly, but I've had several students, they get a job within 2 weeks.
Wow.
No one ever comes back and tells me, like, wait a minute, like, we still have a network with enough people. I need a network with more people. I'll show them how to do it, but no one says
Right.
no. Like we have to go back and like no. They say, hey, we got a job. I'm like yes, exactly. No one tells me, well, I need to apply 50 more jobs. Like no, you don't. You got a job, right? You
You
only
got
need
the
one
job.
job. Yeah. So again, what do I have to teach people? I have to teach them that we need to focus on the real goal.
Mhm.
Applications,
Mhm.
networking, connections, even interviews. Those are not the goals. The goal is to get a job. So let's
Yeah.
focus on how do we get there as fast as possible, and also the right job, not just any job. We want to make sure it's the right job. So,
Right. Yeah, that's the key, because I
mhm.
think a lot of times and people get desperate, and they're just like, "I'll just take anything," but you want them to get matched with the right job. And speaking about, like, you were talking about resumes and the formatting of resumes. Can we go back to that a little
Yeah,
bit more? Because there's all this AI and artificial screening and people trying to beat the applicant tracking system and keyword scans and make sure you put your keywords in white type, font, colored font so that you can beat the applicant all these things that are very artificial and robotic. From your perspective, how can candidates, like, make sure that they're standing out or trying to beat what is your words of wisdom for those who are trying to beat the system and
yeah.
trying instead of trying to connect on that human level?
So that's what I always tell people. You know, there if you try to be the best at one thing,
Mhm.
whether the highest grades, the most experience, or whatever, you run the risk of being beaten by someone. So someone's always going to be smarter, taller, quicker, more money than you. There's always going to be someone more. So instead
Mhm.
of trying to compete, I tell my clients to
Outsmart and not compete.
outsmart. Yeah, not compete. So for example, Michael Phelps. Everyone knows who Michael Phelps is. Gold
Yes.
medalist. He's won like 25 gold medals in swimming. If Michael Phelps comes to me and we're in a pool and he says, "I'll race you from here to the other side and back," I'm not going to take that bet because I'm always going to lose. I will
Yes.
always lose. If I get inside the pool, I'm always going to lose against Michael Phelps.
Mhm.
However, if I say, okay, sure, I'll run around the pool, maybe I won't beat him, but there's a better chance of me beating him. That's not smart in him, right? Because again, if I get in the pool, I'm always going to lose. Actually, I don't even know how to swim that well, so I'll probably just start drowning. He's going to have to save me.
Oh,
But
no,
uh,
Ramon, no.
so again, I'm not going to compete. I'm going to outsmart. So what do I do? Okay, so talking about the resumes, I'm going to make sure that the resume works for me. I'm not.
Mhm.
You can look at formats and you can see what works best for you. I'll tell you a
Mhm.
quick story. I had a client several years ago. Her name was Shelly. Is Shelly,
Mhm.
and she came to me and she said, "Hey, so she was maybe like 23, 24, very high
Mhm.
achieving young lady." And she said, "I have a question for you before we start working on the resume." She was kind of testing me out. And she's like, everyone I go to says that I should have a one-page resume because I'm a recent graduate. Okay, what do you think? And I said, well, it really depends on you. Like, do you have something that we need to include that maybe requires more than one page? And she's like, well, I do have one thing, but everyone wants to keep it off my resume. And I said, okay, what's that one thing? She's like, actually, it's two things. So keep in mind, she's like 23.
Mhm.
She's like, actually, I have two patents in this particular field that I'm in. And everyone I talk to, they want to put my education, they want to put my internship experience, they want to put my volunteer experience, and then there's not enough room for my patents. So that will go on the second page, but everyone says, well, no, there's not enough room, so we got to keep your patents off. So that way you can have your education, your internship, and your volunteer experience. And I said, no. Again, if we need more room, we'll make more room, but forget about your education. You're 23. You have two patents. We're going to put the patents at the very
You
top.
need to put that at the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah. So
Yes.
again, everyone, a lot of people, they're well-meaning, but they just want to follow a format because that's a format. I was like, that's great that there's a format. I don't care about the format. I care about my client. Our goal. What is the goal? My goal is not to have the prettiest, uh, most similar resume to everyone else. My goal is and part of my French, hell, my goal is not even the resume. My goal is the job. So what do we need to do to make sure that resume attracts the right people, the right
Yes.
opportunities, the right interviews, so that way we can get a job. So for
Yes.
her, what we did, her name, immediately after, we put her patents because that
Nice.
caught people's attention. So
Oh,
that's something I would tell people, like, okay, what works for you, what best presents you, not sells you, presents you, and let's work with that first.
yeah. I love that. I love that tip. And I love this whole getting away from the selling of yourself. How are you going to best present yourself? And yeah, I was like shaking my head the whole time when you're saying, oh, yeah, put the education up first. I'm like, no, those patents need to be at the front, like
Right.
at the top, like after her name.
Yeah,
So what ended
exactly.
up happening with her? Did she end up getting a job
Oh
quite
yeah, no,
quickly?
she definitely got a job. She actually had three, and so I'll walk you through the process. So we did
Mhm,
that, and obviously she became a lot more attractive because people were like, "Oh wow, that's the thing." So from there, again, when you're looking for a job, I always tell people be specific. Looking for a job is looking for a partner, for a boyfriend or girlfriend.
mhm,
When you're looking for someone, what do you say? Well, I'm looking for a pretty girl or a good-looking guy. But your version of pretty, your version of good-looking might be different than mine.
right.
So what happens, and again, I'll tell you from my experience, when I was single many years ago, and I would tell my friends, "Hey, I'm looking for a girlfriend." I said, "What kind of girlfriend?" "Oh, well, a pretty one." And they would always, say, "Oh, well, I know someone who's single," and maybe they weren't the prettiest one, but they're single, right? So same thing happens with the job search. Again, let's be
Mm,
honest. The same thing happens with job search. When you say, "Hey, I'm looking for a job," again, you'll see this if you go to Facebook. My son is looking for a job. My daughter, and what's the first thing that people put? McDonald's is hiring. And
mhm,
it's like, yeah, I know, but my son or my daughter, they have a technical degree, they're computer science, architect or whatever.
mhm,
And it's like,
mhm,
it's a job, it's not the job I want, right? So I always tell people, okay, let's start with that. Be specific. What do you want? I just need a job. Okay, I get it. Maybe you need a job, but if you could get the right job, what job would it be? Where would it be? What would it be? What would you be called? Uh, who you would be working for? How much would they
mhm.
be paying to be working there? What do you want to be called? Once you figure that out, it narrows down your choices because,
Yes.
well, I want to work in, we were talking earlier, here in Texas. We're in Texas. It doesn't really matter. Okay, that's fine, but it's here in Texas. So anything that says outside of Texas, we can scratch out because I'm not interested
Yeah,
in Texas, right? I want to get paid this much. Okay, well, we got a range. Okay, so anything that's paying less, we're probably going to, again, scratch out.
knock it out.
Being important, like we'll take it. And again, once you know more or less what you want, it's easier because then you can make decisions. So, for example, let's say I want to make $100,000 and I want to stay in Texas. Just two of my parameters, let's just pretend.
Yeah.
But if I see a job that pays $500,000 and it's in Oklahoma, I can say, you know what? That's not, the salary is more than what I was looking for.
Mhm.
It's outside of Texas, but that makes up the money makes up for the not being in
Yeah.
Texas. Maybe I'll consider it. Then you can make exceptions, right?
Mhm.
But when you have all the jobs in the world, you're not focused on anything. So
Yeah.
again, focus on what you're looking for. So that's the first thing we did with Shelly. She wanted to work. She was very much into like biohacking and natural stuff. So she wanted to work at a place that um, did kind of like not necessarily renewable energy, but kind of like a more of like a natural stuff and all these things.
Mhm.
So she wanted to work in the Bay Area. So that's another thing.
Mhm.
She was in Houston, wanted to work in the Bay Area. And process engineer was the title she was looking for. So
Okay.
I said, okay, well, let's look for those companies. So we came across three companies uh, that were in the Bay Area where she wanted, uh, a process engineer, and they were in the kind of natural space that
Right.
that she was interested in. Okay, so now
Mhm.
we were focused on those companies. So again, most people would send an application, wait, and then hopefully hear back yes or
And
no.
sometimes no, most of the time you don't hear
Listen,
anything back.
right, exactly. So what Shelly we did is like, okay, let's look for jobs. So we found these two companies. They had positions available for what she was interested in, and I said, okay, let's do two things. Let's apply. So normal application online, we send it in,
Mhm.
and let's reach out to people. So for one of these companies, there's actually the name of the person who would have been her boss because they had some kind of employee testimonial. Like, I love working here. It's so wonderful, right? A lot of companies have that. So we found the person's name and we just figured out what the person's email was. Just a simple search, and we found it. And it was the same thing for the other two companies. So what did we do? So we sent an email to those people, the hiring managers, not HR, hiring managers, decision makers. So here's the difference. HR is a gatekeeper. Hiring managers is the decision maker. A gatekeeper cannot make exceptions. A gatekeeper says you need to have this major, these many years of experience, whatever. A decision maker can say, you know what? Typically, we only look at these majors, but I kind of like your profile. Let's at least talk. Well, I'm not saying you're getting the job yet, but let's talk. And then they can make an exception. So I'll tell you a quick aside on that. Several years ago, a friend of mine who was a recruiter told me the story that she was looking for a specific candidate. They were looking for 3 to 5 years of experience. She found this perfect candidate. She said, look, this guy, it's almost like if the guy had taken the job description and made it his profile. But he hadn't, because they were just looking for that person, for that candidate. So the guy it was 3 to 5 years of experience. Everything else was exactly what they wanted. This guy had 2 years and 11 months of experience. That's 3 years, right?
I mean, that's 3 years. Yeah.
Anyway, so my friend, the recruiter, went to her boss and like, I found the guy. He's perfect. Let me send him to you. And her boss saw it and said, wait a minute. He doesn't have 3 years of experience. And she's like, I know, but like, it's 2 years and 11 months. And, between the time we call him, the time we schedule an interview, he has his interview.
Yeah.
We review the interviews. We make him an offer. He accepts the offer. He gives his 2 weeks notice, and then he starts here. It will be 3 years.
You'll be at the 3 years.
The recruiter was like, nope, that's not it. You need 3 years of experience. So she had to let go of this perfect candidate because the reason was because if in case the candidate did not turn out to be a good person, they would find someone to blame, and they would say, well, HR, we told you 3 to 5. He's not 3 years of experience. He's 2 years and 11 months. That's less than 3. So anyway, so they were not willing to take a risk. A decision maker would have said, like, yeah, that's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Bring that person in. Okay. So going back to Shetty's story. So we send emails to these people.
Yep.
Not asking for a job, but presenting yourselves as a solution to their problem.
Yes.
So we did some research on the companies and why they were hiring those positions. So people don't hire people just because. There's a reason that there's a job posted out there. So for this particular company, we found a interview of the CEO, and the CEO was talking about how they're going to increase production on this particular product line. And Shetty's like, well, that's why they need a process engineer, because they need to make this one sample into 1 million units. So that's why they're hiring for it. So she presented herself as like, hey, I've done this before for other companies, and I would love to help you with that too. And then from there, the hiring manager replied to the email, CC'd HR, and say, Shetty, we'd love to send me your resume, send a resume, and then, long story short, she got an interview and she got an offer. And then same thing for the other 2 companies.
That's amazing. I mean, then now she's got the pick of the litter, because she spoke to their pain. It's not just, okay, we know that you have this position open, but here's how I've done this before. And here's how I can be a solution to your business. That is brilliant. That is brilliant. I love it. I love it. That's a really good success story. And if anyone's listening, Ramon has a wonderful website that we're going to be sharing at the end of the show in our show notes, so that you can hire him to help you find your job, the real job that you really want. I wanted to talk more about purpose, because, you did this for 15 years without getting paid. And now you've been doing it for many years now as a business. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What's your why, especially when you're working with people who right now could feel a little discouraged, feeling burnt out and like worn out from the job search? What's the why that keeps you motivated to do what you do?
For me, the last few years, and I say last few years, probably like the last 9 years, I've been focusing a lot on candidates who are neurodiverse. So people
Mm.
who have been diagnosed with ASD, autism, um, Asperger's, all that stuff.
Mhm.
Um, these are very smart people who struggle through the interview process because a lot of the interview process has to do with body language and uh, physical cues and that kind of stuff. And a lot of people who have Asperger's, ASD, autism, they struggle with that. Not
Yeah.
everyone, but a lot of them do.
Yeah.
Uh, to me, like I mentioned before, I used to focus just on executives. So I would help
Mhm.
these C-level executives, get a $100,000 more pay raise and
Mhm.
advance your title. Uh, and and that was great. People were like, "Hey, thank you, I got the job. Now I'm a senior VP as opposed to a VP and that kind of stuff." But when I work with people who are neurodiverse, a lot of times people have written them off a long time ago. And I've received so many calls from usually from the moms telling me,
Mhm.
when I had him and he was diagnosed, they told me put him in a home because he's not ever going to go to school. When I tried to
Mhm.
put him in kindergarten, when he graduated middle school or high school, that's it for him. He's done. He's never going to make it in college. And now that he was in college, everyone's like, well, that's nice he's in college, but he's never going to get a job. And, you know, we've proven them wrong. Like we show
Yeah.
them, like, no, these people can get jobs. Uh,
Yeah.
we we just need to show them the right way. And no one's really. Most people who teach people how to do anything, for that matter, not just interview skills, they teach you maybe the how, but they don't explain the why.
Why? Yes.
And so, for example, they'll say like, have a strong handshake, have a good resume, and it's okay. And maybe some people may take the step and show you what a good resume looks like,
Right.
but no one takes the time to explain why a good
Why?
resume matters, or why you should maintain eye contact, why you should smile, why all these things, right? No one explains that. No one. And when I teach my students this, when I explain it to them, I can see their eyes change because they're like, "Oh, now I know," but no
Yeah.
one's ever told them. So a lot of my clients, they work at places that people wish they could work. Facebook, Google's,
Mhm.
Amazon, Blue Origin, NASA, uh, big Fortune 500, Fortune 100
Mhm.
companies,
Mhm.
unicorn companies, that kind of stuff. So again, that really motivates me. So when I get one of those clients, again, I would love to help someone get their an S as a senior VP in front of their VP title, but helping a student get a job, not just a job, but like the job, a very good job that pays them very well, has a is a career. It's not just a job. It's not just a paycheck.
Yes.
It's a career with benefits and all that stuff. Uh, that motivates me. That gets me real excited. And again, I just love proving people wrong. So when someone says, "Well, they're never going to get a job," and I'm like, well, actually, we got 3 offers." I love that. I love that, and the parents
I
of my
get
students love that, and obviously the students of my program love that too.
I've got the chills just listening to that. Oh, wow. Your why is telling them the why and helping
Mm.
them get the job. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I have one more question because I know that our time is running short because I could talk to you for a more half an hour, but I know that you're a busy man. So, looking back at your career journey, I always love to ask this question: what advice would you give your younger self? Um, like what's one piece of advice, like career advice that you would give um to the younger Ramon?
You know, and I tell this to all my clients too. When I went to college, I went to get an accounting degree. So I worked very hard in high school, so
Mhm,
I could get accepted to the number one accounting program in the country, which I got in, and I
mhm,
went. After a while, after I graduated, uh, I kind of liked it, but then I stopped liking it, and I didn't
mm,
enjoy it. So about after 6 years of experience, I was like, I was starting to hate it. I really did,
mm,
and I struggled so much with that because I was wondering if I had wasted my time getting an accounting degree. And I paid for my own college, and I worked 2 jobs to pay for college. So I was like,
Yeah.
did you waste your own money and your time getting a degree you don't want? And I struggled so much with that, until I realized that 18. So I blame my younger self, my 18-year-old for, like, it was, you're so stupid, all that stuff. Like, you should have gone something else or done something else. But then I realized, like, no, I gave him grace
Mhm.
because, and then I realized, you don't need to apologize, or you don't need to forgive that 18-year-old. That 18-year-old was right. He wanted to be an accountant,
Mhm.
right? And he worked hard at it. So there's nothing wrong with that. He was right. 30-year-old me was also right. 30-year-old me did not want to be an accountant anymore.
Right.
And so I gave 30-year-old me grace. I'm like, okay, you're allowed to change and do something
Right.
else. So what did I do? I started this business. That's when I kind of started this, figuring out what I wanted to do next. And
Mhm.
and that's what I tell my students all the time. Like, yes, you have a degree in computer science, you have a degree in law, you have a degree in whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
Later on in your career, you might want to change, and that is fine. Like, there's
Yes.
nothing wrong with that. And I tell a lot, now it's a lot easier. Maybe 40 years ago, it wouldn't have been as easy as it is now. It's still a challenge,
Right.
but again, if you ask your grandparent was this, and
And you
he or she
stay.
retired as this. That's it. There's
Yes, until
nothing
you get the gold watch, 50
right,
years, you know?
right. Yeah. So that's what I would tell a younger self. Again, I worked through that myself, but I tell my clients that, like, my clients, that most of them are 22, 23, and I tell them, hey, that's okay if you want to switch later on. Like, I'm glad you got this job. Great. Ride the wave as much as you want. However, just be aware, later on you might want to switch jobs, and that is okay. That is
Yes.
fine. You decide if you want to or not, but that is okay. So, anyways, going back to your original question, I have told my younger self, hey, you weren't wrong. You were right. You wanted to be an accountant. You went to the best school in accounting. You did it. Good job. Hey, 30-year-old me, you're also right. You want to do something else? Okay, that's fine.
It's fine.
But you have to do something about it. You can't just complain. You can't complain about the 18-year-old version of you. Like, oh, he should have done this. Like, no, he was right. So leave him alone. Now you need to figure out what you want to do for yourself. So,
Oh, that's so beautiful and such a beautiful way to like kind of put a cherry on top of all the great advice that you shared today, Ramon. Thank you so much for sharing so many thoughtful, wonderful stories. And I loved that you broke down your process of how you work with your clients because listeners, you can have this experience with Ramon as well. I will again share his website. Are you available on any other platforms? Do you have another way to where we can reach you or find you? You should have your own
um,
podcast.
yeah. The best way, you can go to my website, persuasiveinterview.com, and that information is there. There's also a booking tool there if people want to have a call with me to just find out more about my process and if we're a good match for each other. The only other place where I really do spend time is on LinkedIn. So you can
Okay.
look me up on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/interview coach. And you'll find my information there. And every day, we do uh, 3 times a week, I believe, is when we post messages on LinkedIn. And on
Mhm.
Fridays, I do what I call Offer Letter Friday. So on Offer Letter Friday, I'll put a text or an email that I got from a client when they tell me, "Hey, I got the job," or like, "Hey, they agreed to like raise my uh, negotiated $25,000 more," or whatever it
Nice.
is. So
Nice.
Offer Letter Fridays, every Friday, I put something like that. So you can look up the hashtag Offer Letter Friday.
Love it. Love it. Happy early offer letter Friday.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciate you taking the time and helping us see how we don't need to sell ourselves, but we need to persuade people to understand who we are and what magic we bring to the table. Thank you so, so much for your time and attention, Ramon. And everyone who's listening, thank you for joining us. And if you liked what you heard, like and share, subscribe, let everyone know, and pass the word. That's how Ramon got his business started, a referral. So if you know
Yep.
anyone who needs help with their interviewing skills, Ramon's the man. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to Career View Mirror. If you got value from this episode, please consider leaving a rating and a review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or head on over to Spotify and click 5 stars for our show. We also have a YouTube channel with video versions of our episodes, so subscribe over there for more content. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.